right. Let's take a look and see what the internet's doing today. Come on now.
Today's debate is about pro-life versus pro-choice.
Oh.
If you didn't already know, New York just passed a law that pretty much guarantees all abortions, no questions asked. Up to 7 months for a walk-in, on-demand abortion, and for a quote-unquote permit, up to 9 months. Which, by the way, if you didn't know for some strange reason because you failed sex education, is a full-length pregnancy. So basically, when your baby has a beating heart, nervous system, and fully functioning organs. But of course, we all know that's just a clump of cells, am I right?
I've got to send this to Suris. I'm going to have to apologize to his audience. Here you go. He's going to love this. And by love this, I mean he's going to hate this.
Okay, so what exactly am I going to love?
Now, believe it or not, while I am a die-hard pro-life Christian, smash that like button for Jesus. I used to be pro-choice.
Oh goody. Hit the like button for Jesus, everyone.
At one point said that I was personally pro-life, but I didn't want to upset other women by telling them what to do. So basically, murder is bad. But if kids are being chopped up at Camp Crystal Lake? Nah. Jason has every right to his opinion. Life is about lessons, people. Life is about lessons.
Okay, so I'm guessing you don't actually know how an early-term abortion works? Because what you're describing is a very late-term abortion. And even then, you're purposefully using gruesome imagery in order to make it sound icky and vile. But let's go ahead and see what else you say.
Number one issue with pro-choice. If you're quote-unquote pro-choice, why is abortion the only choice you give women? Think about it for a second. You walk into a Planned Parenthood and say, I'm pregnant, I'm not financially stable, or the father isn't in the child's life, or whatever. And the first thing they tell you is, are you here for an abortion? They don't tell you about pregnancy crisis planning. They don't tell you about free daycare or even free healthcare options.
Okay, but you do realize that that's because those choices are already available to women, right? Daycare and healthcare and stuff, those are already choices that are available. Also, by the way, that whole free healthcare thing, not as available as you think. In fact, even just having skin touch with your child is about a $36 upcharge on your hospital visit. And for all that stuff to be free, that would be icky socialism now, wouldn't it? You seem to live in a fairy tale world. Unfortunately, we don't live in that one, so we have to do the best with what we've got. And since we don't live in a world where all pregnancies can come to term without any complications whatsoever, and where financial stability isn't something that everybody has, we have to make some of the more messy choices because we don't have better ones. The adoption system, especially here in the United States, is completely fudged. The entire foster care system is fudged and rife with abuse. And if you're poor, the situation for you in America doesn't exactly get better anytime soon. Usually, the only way you can make time to better your circumstances is by being single or by not having a child. If you find yourself where you aren't in the unfortunate circumstance of having to have a child, then you have to take responsibility for the pregnancy. And by the way, terminating the pregnancy, that is taking responsibility for it.
They don't help you find housing facilities or a place to work after you have your child. They don't even help you with adoption options. When it comes to unplanned pregnancies, the first thing that comes to mind, and the only thing that is even spoken of, is abortion.
Okay, so Planned Parenthood apparently doesn't give you adoption choices as one of your choices as a woman. Okay, that's your claim. So I'm going to link below the Planned Parenthood website and their section on adoption. It has everything from places that you can actually ask about these services, including Planned Parenthood facilities, by the way. They have a number for All Options, which is the National Pro-Choice Adoption Collaborative for judgment-free support. It even has a section on how it might feel if you ultimately do decide to make this choice. It also explicitly says to discuss this option with your partner. So, yeah, it's good that you already started out with claims that literally have no foundation.
There are so many different choices besides abortion, and yet we always choose abortion.
No, we don't. Maybe in the idealistic fantasy world where you get to other everybody who doesn't agree with you, that's the case. But in the real world, there's enough people who've chosen adoption that we have flooded adoption facilities and foster care issues as a result. Unfortunately, most of us who work on the ground, living here in the real world, have to deal with the real consequences of our actions. We don't get to pretend we're in an idealistic society where us versus them is always a clean cut and dry black and white narrative. And part of that is accepting the fact that many people who are not ready ready to become parents don't just choose abortion. The reason that pro-choice is pro-choice is because it allows for all options, including abortion. This is why one of the things that I've said in a debate on this very topic is that I'm pro-choice, not pro-abortion. I support all of the women's rights, including those that have to do with their own bodily autonomy. And another unfortunate reality that you are going to have to swallow is that that baby, even if we grant it full personhood, its bodily autonomy stops somewhere at the uterine wall. And if I have to take the choice between the mother and the baby at any point, I'm going to choose the mother. Here's a thought experiment to run by yourself to show why this option is always going to be the correct one. You have a burning building. It's a hospital. You've granted full personhood to all embryonic cells, at least once they're fertilized. So you have a vat with hundreds of potential lives. This vat is refrigerated. It will survive you carrying it, but it is in the burning building. But it has hundreds of potential humans in it. You also have a crying infant on the other side of the room, and you only have enough strength to carry one. Which do you choose? If we grant full personhood to the embryonic cells, then every single one of these cells is a human just like that infant. But if you choose the infant, you're being hypocritical. So try being consistent. The only difference between the mother in this situation and the one with the burning building is that the mother has bodily rights, whereas here it's just a matter of a trolley problem. And the mother, unlike the trolley problem, has a one-to-one issue. One living, breathing being and one embryonic cell versus hundreds. Ideally, in the trolley problem scenario, where we have hundreds of potential lives on the road, then the only choice should be to get those 100 potential lives. But if you honestly would say that, then I would call you a moral monster, because you actively decided to kill a baby.
What's really interesting to me is that even the women who do know about these choices continue to say things like,
"My body, my choice."
is it really that?
Yes, it is. As I literally just explained, I would view saving the infant as the only real option in the issue of the burning fire, even if I granted full personhood to every embryonic cell, which means that, to be consistent, I would also have to choose the mother over the embryonic cell.
Let's view the diagram here, shall we? This is the women's body. This is the baby's body. See the difference? You're 7 months pregnant. Your baby has a beating heart, a nervous system, functioning organs, fingers, toes, a skeleton. At 7 months, your baby is kicking, moving its fingers and toes, listening to the sound of your voice, and recognizing you as its mother. Pretty sure that means the baby has its own body.
Ashton, not everyone supports late-term abortions.
And I get it. I used to be the same way. I used to say things like, abortion's wrong, but if you do it before the heart starts beating, you're totally fine. Really? Because even if you're against 9 months, 7 months, 3 months, down to 2 weeks pregnant, the real question is, when does life actually begin?
Actually, that's not the question on hand, because again, in the trolley problem, I granted you full personhood for every single one of those embryonic cells. I granted that every single one of them was a life from the beginning. For those of you who've read The Violinist, that is, albeit a somewhat sloppy take on this issue. For those who haven't read the book, the argument basically boils down to this. You and a famous violinist find yourselves in a car. You're out in the middle of nowhere, and he's possibly going to die. You, however, are a nobody. You have the option to give this violinist a kidney. This kidney will save his life. It's the one organ he needs to survive out here in the desert. Now, while there is a moral question as to whether or not you should do this, a lot of people would say that they should try to save the other person's life. The actual argument, though, is whether or not the violinist now has a right to your organ. Does this violinist have a right to the organ that you have in your own body? If no, then neither does the fetus. There's obviously more refined versions of the argument, and I get to those in my debate on the Non Sequitur show on this issue. Links will be in the description. There's another possible trolley problem that can come up from this as well. If you are a very functional human, you've got everything going for you, and you go into the hospital for a routine checkup, but there are 5 people dying in that hospital. You yourself in your body have the things that they need. So one person is dying and needs a lung. Another is dying and needs a kidney. Another is dying and needs a heart. One might need a skin graft, and the last one could use a new arm. You, as a healthy individual, have all of these things. Should the doctor allow these 5 people to die and let you live, or should the doctor find some way to harvest you and then use your pieces to keep these 5 people alive? It technically is the greater good, but that's why this doesn't come down to a moral dilemma. It comes down to a dilemma about rights and legality. Because even if you accept that you have to give these organs to everybody who needs them in order to do the most good, even though it sacrifices 1 life, it sacrifices 1 life versus 5. But by making this decision, you've actively violated the rights of another human being. You've violated their bodily autonomy. This is where the argument boils down. Please notice that in these scenarios, I have used fully functioning adult human beings, people who have every right of a living, breathing person. And oh, by the way, in the argument for the violinist, if somebody were to say the difference between that argument and the one of the mother who's pregnant is that she made an active choice to get pregnant, 1, consent to sex is not consent to pregnancy, and 2, all I would have to do is say that the violinist and the person who got in the car actively chose to get in that car knowing there was a chance they would get wrecked in the desert. It still doesn't change the argument, and it doesn't change the fact that the violinist does not have the rights to the other person's organ.
According to the American College of Pediatricians, and I quote, the predominance of human biological research confirms that human life begins at conception, fertilization. At fertilization, the human being emerges as a whole, genetically distinct, individuated zygotic living human organism, a member of the species Homo sapiens, needing only the proper environment in order to grow and develop. The difference between the individual in its adult stage and zygotic stage is one of form, not nature. This statement focuses on the scientific evidence of when an individual human life begins.
So here's the first issue I have. The American College of Pediatricians is a socially conservative advocacy group of pediatricians and other healthcare professionals. It is not a primary source group for study and data. It is, in every way, shape, and form, a special interests conglomerate. Oh, by the way, they've also been listed as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center for pushing anti-LGBTQ junk science. So, yeah, excuse me if I find your source to be, well, absolutely bullshit.
And that comes from the American College of Pediatricians. But of course, every pro-choice person seems to want to turn to their favorite quote-unquote scientist, Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill isn't a real scientist. Bill Nye, a science guy, everyone's favorite pro-life scientist, has an engineering degree. And even if you're going to run by Bill Nye's pro-choice logic, in order for a baby to be considered a human life, the egg must be attached to the uterine wall.
Eggs get fertilized, and by that I mean sperm get accepted by ova a lot. But that's not all you need. You have to attach to the uterine wall, the inside of a womb. Attach to the uterine wall.
Wait, but that makes no sense, because if you're like any woman out there who has tried to get pregnant or has taken a pregnancy test, you'll know that a pregnancy test can't test positive until at least 1 week after the egg attaches itself to the uterine wall, which means you can't even think about getting an abortion until that baby is 1 week old in the womb.
Okay, but again, that doesn't matter because...
What's this? Two cis males talking about abortion? Time for someone with a womb to step in. Sup, my name's Emmett, and I've had an abortion. Now, the girl in this video specifically talks about late-term abortion and how awful it is. Can I just point out that late-term abortion does not happen for people who just don't want to have kids. That is what a, early abortion is for. Late-term abortion is reserved for people who something is incredibly wrong and the baby is going to be dead when it's born, or it's already dead. It's not alive, it's a corpse. It's killing the mother. So by arguing against a late-term abortion, you're literally signing someone up to death, and that's honestly a dick move.
Oh, hey Emmett, fancy for you to hop in here. Well, for those who don't know, this is Gaelic Knox, who's also the one who's done my avatar and the one who's done the intro for the show. But I think I'm stepping on your toes. Continue?
As someone who already had pre-existing mental health issues, who went through an abortion, had to deal with the mental fuckery that was caused by the abortion, to then turn around expecting love and support, to receive backlash from pro-lifers, it pushed me to the brink of suicide. If you think you're helping anyone by pushing your pro-life agenda down people's throats, trust me when I say this, you are killing people. You are the reason for deaths. Cut it the fuck out. Considering that your movement is called pro-life, I would like to think that you'd do everything in your power to prevent people dying, but considering the kind of comment that you aim towards people who have had an abortion or who are pro-choice, I don't think you're pro-life. I think you're just pro-control. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. What do I know? I'm just someone who's had an abortion. Back to you two. Good luck.
Well, there you have it. Before anybody in the comment section gets to go ahead and jump on me for being a cis-hetero white male and talking about this, my horse in the race, while it might not be my body, is that I have friends and loved ones who actively have either had to have this procedure or may need it in the future. So I will fight for that option. Don't like it? Bite me.
According to the logic of everyone's favorite pro-choice scientist, who isn't even a scientist.
Well, no. A lot of the stuff he learned scientifically could have been stuff he learned as an autodidact, but there's no reason to say that somebody can't also be smart and be an autodidact. And whether or not he is a scientist has nothing to do with his arguments. So trying to do an ad hominem attack saying that his argument doesn't matter because he doesn't actually have the honorific scientist doesn't mean jack shit. It's ad hom at best and dishonest at worst.
Abortion's murder! And it doesn't even end there. Even after everything I've just said, you still don't believe abortion is murder. People who claim to be pro-choice also claim to be pro-women. But what if I told you abortion is the most anti-women as it gets? I'm going to tell you something that most pro-life people won't. In fact, what I'm probably going to tell you is going to piss off a lot of other pro-life people.
Oh, really? Because I could say something that can piss off a lot of pro-choice people. I'll go ahead and bite the bullet and say that abortion's murder. I'll go ahead and bite the bullet and say that it's completely evil. And I will still have an argument that it is a necessary evil because of the world we live in. The fact that we don't live in an idealistic society and we in fact live in the real world means that sometimes there are going to be sloppy, messy choices that have to be made. The military is an organization based around defense and death. That's literally it, but it's a necessary evil. Being able to protect your sovereign borders is something that you need to be able to do, even if it just comes down to weaponized death. This argument is no different. Go ahead and call it evil, go ahead and call it morally repugnant. I don't care. It's still a necessary evil even if you view it that way. Just like how a standing military and the lives that are lost as a result of it is a necessary evil to maintain sovereign borders, abortion is a necessary evil in order to maintain the sovereignty and autonomy of one's own body. There, I've said my thing that'll piss off pro-choicers. Now let's see what you're gonna say that pisses off pro-lifers. Mine doesn't undermine my argument in any way, shape, or form. Maybe yours won't.
If it means saving the life of a child and even the life of a woman, I'm gonna do what needs to be done. A lot of pro-life people out there stand outside abortion clinics holding up signs with pictures of aborted babies. Even tell a lot of these girls who have gotten an abortion or are about to get an abortion that they're going to hell. Yes, abortion is murder. But in a society where the education system and even the health system are constantly telling girls that abortion is normal, should we really blame the girls?
Wait. The thing that you're going to say that undermines your position and would make pro-lifers mad is that they can't cast blame in the direction that's convenient? That's the big thing? That is your big reveal? Because you can't cast blame where it's most convenient? Give me a fucking break. I thought you were going to say something like, you're going to do what has to be done, so if a woman needs an abortion to save her life, then you're going to do it. Or at least not fight her on her rights to do it. But no, your argument is to say that it's society's fault. Blame society. Don't blame the woman, and while I agree with you that you shouldn't blame the woman, that wasn't what we were arguing in the first fucking place.
The abortion industry is a dirty one.
Not as dirty as your tactics.
But the abortion industry will not tell a girl when she goes in for an abortion. Not only do they lie to the girls about removing a clump of cells, but what the procedure is, how the procedure is done, and most of all, what happens after the procedure. Even if for some reason, after everything I just told you, you don't believe abortion is murder, what about the women? One thing pro-life people never address is the women who suffer post-abortions. What Planned Parenthood and other abortion industries don't tell young women is that when you get an abortion, you are forcing your body through the same pain and trauma as a miscarriage.
So Planned Parenthood and facilities like it won't tell people how they feel after an abortion or how they might feel after it? Allow me to link below the Planned Parenthood article on how you'll feel after an abortion. Because I do my research, and that's something that seems to be really difficult for you to do. It even explicitly says in the article that I linked that you may have a range of emotions that will change after the abortion, and it even gives you options to call if you feel like your mood keeps you from doing things that you would normally do each day, the same way that something like depression or anxiety would. So please, again, build up your straw man so that you can knock it down, and allow me to go ahead and put the actual steel man of the position in the description below. Again, start looking at the actual material available to you before you hop on the internet and start lying to people. Or else we'll end up with a society with people just as misinformed as you are, and the thought of that honestly scares me.
Average woman temporarily suffers from physical pain. Average woman permanently suffers from depression, PTSD, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts.
Do you know what else can cause those things? A lifetime of having to raise a child in an environment that is toxic. All of those things can be caused by termination, and all of those things can be caused by keeping the child. Even offering a child up for an adoption can still lead to depression and anxiety as you wonder what's possibly going to happen to a child, what type of home they're going to end up in. But most of the studies that I've read on this say that, in general, your emotions start to level out after the 6-month mark. And those studies are the same studies that say that emotions level out for happiness and things like that after the 6-month and year mark when it comes to things like the lottery. Moments of extreme happiness or extreme sorrow will level out in time. Humans are adaptive. But you mentioned depression and anxiety, which are more permanent. PTSD is much more permanent. Now my question is, are you just going to name drop these illnesses, or are you actually going to explain how they function?
Her body and her mind are literally drowning themselves in hormones and chemicals linked to depression, anxiety, PTSD, and even thoughts of suicide.
Okay, you've name dropped them twice now. Now they're very significant to your argument. Would you like to explain them?
Post-reaction to abortion and miscarriage is completely biological and chemical, and the abortion industries are forcing this torment on our young girls.
Nobody is forcing this torment on young girls. The abortion industry is not forcing people to get abortions. They're simply allowing them the option of them being there. That's like saying the tobacco industry is forcing people to get cigarettes. By the way, one of these two industries puts a lot more money into advertising. So if your argument doesn't work for the tobacco industry, then it doesn't work for the abortion one either.
The amount of girls post-abortion with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and even thoughts of suicide, do you honestly think is pro-choice or pro-woman?
That's the third time you've name-dropped them, and you've got 15 seconds left in your video. I can only assume you don't explain shit.
You would think the same people who claim to be pro-women, pro-choice, and anti-industry would be fighting this.
Anti-industry? When did that factor into the conversation? That's new. You literally just smuggled that into this video. There was no point during any area of this topic where being anti-industry was part of the pro-choice movement. You just brought it in at the last second because you thought it was a good point, but just like your comments about PTSD, depression, and suicidal thoughts, you have not done anything to back any of that up.
Abortion is anti-women, anti-choice, and yes, an industry.
Okay, vaccines are an industry, and yet we have them, and they've done almost nothing but good for society. Retail is an industry, and yet you go to Walmart, I'm sure. The restaurant industry is, by its very nature, is something evil simply because it's an industry? No, and yet you're trying to label it pejoratively because you want to? It actually undermines your position. It does nothing to support it.
And those who support it, their mind has been clouded by lies.
Excuse me, what? Says the person who's literally been lying about the options available at a Planned Parenthood clinic. Okay.
It is time we start exposing what abortion really is, and what it does to women and children every single day.
Sure, expose it. Call it evil. Do all of that, and I'll still argue that it's a necessary evil. And we'll still live in the exact same society and world we live in now. All you're doing is removing the ability for women to have safe abortions if they need them. That's what you're really fighting for. You're not fighting for a pro-life position, you're fighting for a forced birth position.
My name is Ashton, love thy country, hate thy government. Be seeing you.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this person watches Alex Jones. I have nothing to back it up, and even if they do, it doesn't add anything to my argument, but I just wanted to throw that out as a food for thought. That said, thank you Ocean for sending me this clusterfuck of a video. Big thanks to Gaelic Knox, not only for the artwork she provides for the channel, but also for providing her own insight into this issue. I'd also like to thank Raziel for constantly putting up with my shit when I'm recording, and thanks to all of you for suffering through this video with me. Let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are. I'm fairly certain this is going to be one of my more polarizing videos, and that's fine. Links to Discord and everything else will be in the description below as usual, and I hope you guys enjoy reading through the articles I've provided that show that this person was being underhanded. Anywho, I'll see you guys in the next one. Insert end of video tagline here.